name of our show.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to The Large Glass. My name is Todd.
I'm Terri.
And this is our weekly show where we bring you a new artist or art-related topic to talk about. How's everybody doing?
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm okay.
Okay.
I'm okay. We got to spend a day off together today.
We did.
And you know what we did all day? We prepared for this.
Well, we did.
So-
we also saw a first grade concert.
We did.
So that was exciting.
That was really nice.
And it was the first time that they ever got to perform in a concert. So ever, because of the pandemic. So it was super special.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah.
It was good. So let's see. We've got a bunch to go over tonight. We've got a really, really exciting duo of guests tonight, which is not something that we've done it once before, actually, I thought of with Wendy Letvin.
That's
and
true.
Gary Fredrickson.
That is true.
So we did have it one other time. But this one's
and
slightly
Don
different.
and Lisa.
Oh, and Don and Lisa.
Yes.
Sorry, Don and Lisa. I didn't mean to forget that. So let's see. We have Pumpkin Audrey is here. Joseph Barbacci is here. Ben is here.
Ben,
Mom is
Mom
here.
is here.
Hi, Mom.
So they're all slowly filtering in.
There's
That's
others
great.
here.
Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah.
So let's see. We're going to drink.
We're going to drink.
So why don't I work on pouring that?
That sounds great. Tonight we have a repeat
Okay.
repeat rosé.
I got to put something out there for you right now. So, you know, I taught in France, okay? And when I was in Paris, there was nothing better than in the summer having a really nice, dry, crisp rosé and a good salad. It was the perfect lunch on a warm summer day. And I came home having fallen in love with a good, dry rosé. And so once I said to Terri, I was like, have you ever had a rosé? And she's like, bah, I don't do rosé.
I grew up in the 80s and Zinfandel was super popular. So
Well, white Zin kind of
Yeah,
had this
a
cheese
little
factor
bit,
attached to it.
yeah.
And I don't mean like good aged cheese. I mean like cheesy factor. But it's really, you know, something I think you've missed. And so anyway, long story short, we wind up getting this Hampton water for the show we did with Jessica Briley.
yes,
Right? And Terri fell in love with it.
I did.
And I actually really love it too.
Yeah.
So it is produced by the son of John Bon Jovi.
Jesse Bon Jovi.
Jesse Bon Jovi. But, you know, that I think, you know, isn't even necessarily a factor for me. I think this is really quite
Yeah,
good.
I think it's really tasty.
So anyway, there we go. Should we do a little ASMR on
we
our
can do
on
a
our
little
pour?
ASMR.
Here we go.
the
Here we
mic
go.
already.
Ready? All right. Put your headphones on. Here we go. Oh my God, that sound is so amazing. Lovely. There you are.
Right, thank you very much.
There we go. One more. Oh, we've got some people having some drinks in the chat.
Yes.
What's out there? Tell us about it.
We've got a Hendrix on ice with lime from Joseph. Shirley says hello. Hello, Shirley.
Oh, good. John Park is here. Just John tonight. Well, Jess,
Wow.
I'm sorry. And Jess, you're probably mad that your piece of merch is still not there, which I worked on fixing again today. And if it doesn't work this time, I will not only give you a refund on that piece of merch, I'm going to send you a piece of art. Okay?
Ooh.
So how about that?
Yeah.
Now, if Carolyn Thow's watching, she's going to be like, I don't want the hat. I want the art. Anyway, episode 91 tonight.
91.
We're excited about that. We've got Matheny Arts Access here, which we're super thrilled about. Cheers.
Cheers.
Let us know what you're drinking in the chat, everybody. Summer.
Nice summery,
It's summer.
summery taste. Yep.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Okay. So, pin winner.
We do have a pin winner. So I posted a really cool detail of a Milton Avery piece. He's quite popular right now since there's several shows featuring his work. And Jane Fine guessed the correct artist.
Oh, did Jane Fine guess it?
Jane Fine got it.
fantastic.
So she's going to get a pin. I promised her I'd mail it Saturday, and I did not. So I'm going to try again this week, Jane.
For those of you who are interested in behavioral patterns of people,
I owe so many pins, but I'm going to get it. I really, really will.
Another thing I kind of want to put out there just in terms of art-related games, for that matter, is I bet every single one of you out there knows exactly what the Wordle is. I mean, everybody's been doing the Wordle, which the New York Times acquired not long after it became super popular. And it's one of those things that everybody's kind of doing every morning. The National Gallery of Art has started making a thing called the Artle. There's been a lot of spin-offs, but this one's actually pretty good. The Artle, what they do is they have a painting up by a particular artist, and you try to guess the artist. Now, the painting they put up on the first try is a relatively obscure example of the artist's work. If you miss it, they put up a second painting by the same artist, and it gets a little bit easier until by the time they're on the fourth painting, it is just, totally obvious who it is, if there is such an example by that artist. It's, for us visually oriented people, it's actually, I think, a little bit better than Wordle, but that's just me. So, and Joseph Barbacci is saying lots of fun, so he's probably been there already.
Yes.
But definitely give Artle from the National Gallery a go.
Yes.
I think it's really good.
Yes. And if you saw it yesterday, they had the name of the artist in the painting, so that was...
Okay. Yeah, I'm on like try number 4, and I finally get yesterday's, which was a little embarrassing to be total. No, I was try number 3, I got yesterday's. And Terry's like, I got it in 2. I'm like, how did you know that second painting belonged to that artist? She said, I just zoomed in and it's signed.
It's signed. So...
I'm like, oh my God.
So hopefully they don't do that again. But anyway, Artle's cool. Yeah.
Look for the signature.
Yeah.
Last but not least, our last topic that we want to talk about before we start getting into our artists, and that is, and you didn't even realize I was going to say this tonight, but we're tossing around some ideas for the 100th episode, which is in 9 weeks, and we've got a couple of things lined up, a couple of ideas, but we're curious about what our regular viewers want to see on that episode. So, you know how to get in touch with us. If you have our emails, great. Otherwise, DM us through our socials, either on Instagram or on Facebook, and let us know if you have any good ideas. We're curious about what you want. You've been with us all this time. And so what would you like to see? I know John and Jess probably want to see some more photography, which, is certainly possible. But give us a shout and fill us in on that. And the last thing, because I have one more thing.
Okay.
If you're here and you're new, please give us a follow. So if you're here on YouTube, subscribe, hit the bell. Oh, Mike Rader, you just totally said it. Mike Rader wants...
we've been thinking of that too, because that's a big art form.
Mike Rader wants drag night.
I think that's fantastic.
And I actually had that idea about a year ago, and I wanted to do a drag show on this show. But here's where we got sort of tripped up on that. We need a budget, because you can't just ask drag queens to come on the show, because the workload involved in coming on the show is enormous.
And the makeup and the artistry and the performance and all of that. Yeah, there's a lot involved.
So you know what we'll do? We're going to start a GoFundMe to have drag night on the large glass. We'll have a goal of like $3,000, and we'll have this blowout show. I love this.
And the host.
All right, Mike, you're going overboard there. Anyway, as I was saying, if you're watching us for the first time, we would love it if you could give us a follow. So if you're on Twitch, click that little heart that's down there. You can subscribe on Twitch, but that costs money. We would love that too. If you're on YouTube, it's called subscribe. Following is subscribing. Subscribing is following, depending on the channel you're watching. But definitely subscribe to us on YouTube if you're there. Like us on Facebook. We could use that support, and tell friends. Tell friends. Okay. Yep. We're coming into our lull, our summer lull.
Yes,
right?
we are.
All the artists go away for the summer.
Yeah.
We kind of feel left behind. And John Park just donated 5 Tier 1 subs. John, that's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Who got them? Let's see. Top 4.
Bonbons.
Lynn.
Susan Michael.
M. Susan Michael. Oh, and Nurses for Art got one.
Awesome.
That's cool.
That is
John,
cool.
thank you very much for that. Let's get into our guests.
Let's get into our guests. I am super excited to introduce these 2 fine ladies to our broadcast tonight. I had the pleasure of meeting them earlier this year. As you all know, I was finishing up a graduate program, and I studied with Matheny and with Denise King, who's the Chief Nursing Officer, but I fell in love with their Arts Access program. So tonight we're going to take a closer look at the Matheny Arts Access program in Peapack, New Jersey. I wanted to give you a little bit of a background on the Matheny Hospital and Educational Center. Per their website, it's a sophisticated medical and educational facility serving many infants, children, and adults with complex medical conditions and developmental disabilities from across New Jersey and also from across the country. It was founded by a couple, Marguerite and Walter Matheny, back in the 1940s when they had their son Chuck, who was diagnosed with cerebral palsy. They found a need for providing him with education, and they were concerned about many other families in the area who might be facing these issues as well. So their legacy began out of that concern. The medical center initially opened with 3 students and has since grown to include residential, hospital environment, and several group homes, and many, many other parts of that program. The Arts Access program is a multidisciplinary arts program founded in 1993, and it is credited as the brainchild of Dr. Gabor Barabbas and his wife Suzanne. The Robert Shohorn Arts Center, which houses the program, was built in 2000. I don't want to get into too much more because I certainly don't want to steal the thunder of our next 2 guests. Joining us tonight is Eileen Murray. She is the director of the Arts Access program, and we also have Heather Williams. She's the Performing Arts and Outreach Coordinator of the Arts Access program. For everyone watching us tonight, please give a warm welcome to both Eileen and Heather.
Hi, Eileen and Heather. How's it going?
Well, it's just great. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for coming.
We're really, really excited to have you both here.
I'm thrilled to be here.
Oh, we're thrilled to have you. Now, we all talked about this a little bit before we came on the air tonight, but we're a little bit new at the 4-person thing, especially when we have 3 windows up like this. So we'll try our best not to run each other over, because that's going to be mostly my fault if it happens, I promise you. So, you want to start us off?
So, I do. First of all, I do want to encourage our chat room. If you have any questions, please feel free to type the questions into the chat, and we will get to them as soon as we possibly can. And normally, so this is a little bit different because normally when we have artists on, we ask them what it is that they do,
right,
and to explain it to the audience. But I think we're going to begin with each of you in your roles. And Eileen, I think we're going to start with you. And we're going to ask you, can you tell us a little bit about the Arts Access program and what your role is there?
I would be glad to. It's one of my favorite subjects. And I can go on, but I will consciously not do that. So Arts Access is a facilitated fine arts program for people with disabilities. And that's kind of the somewhat clinical definition of it. I always say if I had to boil the program down to one word, it would be choice. And because what we're doing is what Arts Access is doing, and it's our mission, is giving choices in art making to people who can't make them on their own. So for instance, the folks at Matheny, of course, where the program was founded, everybody's in a wheelchair. Many are nonverbal, limited use of their arms and legs, and can't reach for and handle art materials the way that we can. And so what Arts Access has done is devised a method where nobody has to touch a paintbrush and nobody has to open a jar of paint. All they have to do is communicate their choices to someone who will do the work for them. And that's the most basic of explanations. But really, Arts Access is, it's a simple concept, but it's not easy. Because for that communication to take place, the person who is nonverbal has to somehow say to the painting facilitator, and that's the person between the artist and the canvas, I want to use red, I want to add some green to it, and I'd like to put it on the canvas with a large spackle knife. How do you do that without saying it? Well, you do it through a series of questions, and they're all yes and no questions. So the facilitator will ask the questions. wait for that yes and no answer. And bit by bit, doesn't matter how long it takes, the painting will take shape. And as long as that painting takes shape exactly the way the artist wants it to, then we've fulfilled our mission. Did I go on and on too much?
No,
not
not
at
at all.
all.
Not at all. So, sorry, you were going to ask, I think, one other with Eileen, correct?
Well, so usually when we have the artists come on too, just like I said, it's a little bit different this time. How did your involvement with the Arts Access program begin?
I was at a career crossroads back in 2001. I had worked as a web designer in that industry for many years, and graphic design before that. And I'd really gotten to a point where I just wasn't, for want of a better way of saying it, I wasn't feeling it anymore. And really wanted to do something where I felt like I could use my art to be of service. And I had no idea what that was. And stumbled across an ad in the classifieds back in the day. It was paper.
Yeah, some of us know what that is still, but many
Yeah, some
don't.
of you know.
Many
Okay,
don't.
but for your listeners, and met with the assistant director, saw the program, fell in love with it. I kind of left there with the thought in my head, like, they better hire me because I'm going to show up anyway. And so started there as a painting facilitator a couple days a week, and then over the years became the assistant director full-time and ultimately the director.
It's fantastic. So can we shift over to Heather for a few minutes? Heather, can you talk to us about what your role is there and what you do, when you started maybe?
Absolutely. So I have a similar starting story to Eileen. I also answered an ad in the newspaper. They were looking at the time for performers because I'm actually a dancer by trade. So I auditioned for this show, which we now know to be Full Circle. And they said, well, we also have this very part-time, 2-day-a-week position as a demonstrator for our facilitators. And then that position turned into becoming a full-fledged trained facilitator. And then after some time, I moved into the role that I'm currently in, which is performing arts coordinator and outreach coordinator. So the performing arts coordinator basically means that I oversee the dance, drama, creative writing programs. And outreach speaks to working with support coordinators, families in our community. So whether it be a group home or somebody who lives at home who wants to participate in our program, who might not be a resident at Matheny, we also welcome people from the community as well. So that touches on that outreach component for my position.
So just to be clear, because I'm curious about something, you as a dancer, when you first started there, you were actually utilizing your knowledge of dance to show or illustrate to the facilitators the actual movement, right?
Absolutely. So basically, a facilitator would ask the questions of the client, what is it that you want to see? And the facilitator would say, okay, Heather, can you show what that looks like? So I was just the working arms and legs.
Gotcha.
And then the choreographer could say, I want to make a change. And I would have to actively listen and make the change with demonstration until they had decided on the movement that they wanted to be part of their choreography.
I see. Now,
that process is the same for every discipline. So, asking the right questions until we get it right. So that paint doesn't touch the canvas, the move doesn't go into the dance, the word doesn't go onto the page until we exhaust all the possibilities.
Right.
It was essentially the canvas.
I was a moving canvas.
You were a moving canvas.
I love that. So then the objective here obviously is to absolutely solidify the choice that the client, you call them clients, correct? Is that correct?
Clients or artists.
Or artists. That your artists, the choice that the artist is looking to make is, absolute almost when you're about to sort of implement it, correct?
Yeah.
That's right, because once you put that paint to canvas, you can't take it back. And because it might be our facilitators' hands, the ones that touch the canvas, they're taking somebody's work into their own hands, so that's precious, this precious information.
Right.
So they want to be 100% certain that they're not doing anything unless it's exactly what is in the artist's head and heart.
Right. Right. And that poses an interesting question, though, and I'm curious about how you interpret this. Is when we make a painting, for example, we're in the studio, we're engaged in our flow, we're sort of like, sort of experimenting or trying this, we're trying that, and we do something that doesn't quite work. We make a mark that we immediately recognize as being problematic, or we just don't feel it. I think the notion of absolution, this idea that this thing is right, is never quite, accurate. So how do the artists respond to that? How often, like, what type of, in other words, let me see how I formulate this. If a facilitator makes a mark that they feel is the mark that's being communicated, there's probably two potential wrongs there. Obviously, there's a right, but two potential wrongs. There's a wrong that the facilitator maybe didn't interpret it correctly, which you've worked very hard at not having happen. But then there's also the wrong that the artist feels, oh, I thought that, but now maybe it's not quite right. So how does that all play out?
That's such a good question, because there are two phrases that should be said all the time in facilitation. One is, did I get that exactly right? Is it exactly the way you want it? And then the other is there anything on here that needs to be changed?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so when somebody pulls out when the facilitator pulls out a painting out of the artist's bin, and let me back up a little bit, an artist may have like 10 paintings in progress, for example.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, just like,
Wow.
as you said,
Yeah.
the artist might, and they lose interest or they get bored and jump around. So that's, the part of the questions that will be asked, do you want to look at all your paintings and choose the one that you're working on? Do you want to work on the one that you worked on last week? So, it's such a good question, because really artists understand the questions that need to be asked and how important it is to ask them.
Mm-hmm.
While the facilitators are not using their own creativity to create, they should be using their creativity in yes, kind of no, in asking a question if they haven't yet gotten an answer. So to go outside the box in that way, but to make sure to remember how important it is to them when they're making a painting, to reevaluate, like, oh, I hate what I did there, I'm gonna. And sometimes we've had people, they're like, they hated it so much, they're like, nope, take it down, cut it up, throw it out. It's like, okay.
Wow.
That I'm actually listening to your question, Todd and Eileen. We have this story that we tell a lot when we bring people into the program. We have an artist who was working on a painting for 7 years.
Oh, wow.
That's fantastic.
And it was so intricate, so many details. It had such beautiful texture and color and composition. And one day, and Eileen, correct me if I'm telling the story wrong, but one day he said to the facilitator he wanted to cover the entire thing in purple.
No.
Years of work. Years of work. Wanted to cover the whole thing in purple. Essentially starting over. He was not happy.
Wow.
And the facilitator said, is that exactly what you want? And inside he was like, oh my God, I can't believe this.
Wow.
But yeah, sure enough, that was exactly what this artist wanted. He covered the entire thing in purple. And essentially it was just as gorgeous, if not more, when it was when it was done for the second time. But it just goes to show you, like, to your point, Todd, that sometimes they didn't get it right the first time, and it's always their option to make it right.
Right.
And it's the facilitator's job to just listen to their voice and do exactly what's inside. So although it pained the facilitator, he did not react. He covered it in purple, and you
Good.
moved on.
That's-
So-
And that's the other thing, like they can't, and it's something that I noticed in some of the videos that are online, they can't pass judgment. The facilitator can't pose any judgment because even that might influence the artist's decision making in their own painting. So I thought that that was really interesting.
Yeah, because I often, like, leading up to the show, I kind of was really having a hard time making a division between facilitator and teacher, because a teacher is going to sort of indicate
And guide.
right, whereas the facilitator, even with the slightest like hesitation in their voice, for example, over a decision like covering a 7-year painting in purple, would probably bias the thought process a little bit, I would imagine.
Oh yeah, I love it when people get it. Sorry, just the way you said that. I was like, yes, that's it exactly.
Huh.
Yeah, teacher is always like a hot button for me, when people say, well, you're students. And I'm like, well, they're not students, and art teaching is an incredible profession and, obviously has an important role in art and arts culture, but that's not what we do. And one thing that I tend to think is that the artists come down, they learn, but we're not teaching them, just like any artist learns when they go into the studio.
Right.
And it's like, oh, I'm going to set some rice paper on fire today and see what happens. It's like, all right, I learned that that's not what I want in my artwork.
Right.
Extreme example, or maybe not, or just, we can be wacky.
Yeah.
So one of the things I wanted to do, you were kind enough to send us some footage of some of the facilitation process. So I think a good point right now is to look at some of that material and kind of see how that works out. So I'm going to pull up one of these videos, and we'll just kind of take a look at how this goes.
Okay, so from this point, does it keep going to the right? No, it needs to go to up or down? Yes. So we're going to move up and down first. Does it go up? It does go up, okay. Slowly move this dot up. A little bit further back, okay.
Now, just a voiceover. I think Ellen is one of your
Right
most
there.
prolific artists there at Matheny.
Okay. So is this dot
And this is
right
Andrew
above the other
working with
one?
her. How does Ellen communicate? She
right
communicates
above the
mostly
other
with her hands?
That's right.
Okay.
We'll get up
So
and
she's
we'll make
giving
sure it's right
Andrew
above.
indications through that communication.
And not, well, it does matter. This is, we're actually watching Stephen.
Oh, I'm sorry. It said Andrew in the corner. I apologize.
It's his Zoom.
Oh, it's a Zoom. It does that.
You were well within your rights to think that it was Andrew.
Masks and Andrew.
So many friends.
For Ellen, closed fist, that's yes, and open hand is no.
Okay.
There
Okay.
is right above, directly above that line. Is this going to be a straight line, or is it going to be a curved line? It's going to be a straight line this time. Cool. Just go and get the ruler then, and go straight to straight.
I'm really getting a sense right now of the time involved in making a mark in a piece, and it's incredible, the patience, number one, but more importantly, the thoroughness with which the facilitator is checking every element of that mark. It's really, really something.
Is that how you want it to
It-
look?
We've broken the art making
Does this line
process
continue to another
down
point?
into its basic building
No.
blocks.
Yeah.
You
This
know,
is
what
the
are the
complete
pieces
line.
that you use to make art? Color, shape,
Yes.
line, form,
Right.
and
Very
and
cool.
go from there. So as to be able to offer the choices in a non-overwhelming way, but still not hold back on any of the choices.
Right. Right. One of our, we have a couple of comments that are coming into the chat room. One from Joseph Barbaccio, who's saying you have to be so empathetic. And I believe that's from the standpoint of the facilitator in sort of really understanding, what the artist is asking for. And John Park is saying it's very easy for me to imagine this as a musician because when I have the idea in my head, and as long as I could communicate it to someone some way, the notes, they could write the notes down. It's a little less direct with painting, I imagine, but the same process.
Two very good points.
Yeah, the mark making to me is still, I'm still like sort of mulling over this whole notion of, and I know this number is going to vary wildly, probably from artist to artist and from project to project, but most often people in the chat room will say, well, how long does it take you to make a painting? So there's a good question for right now, I think.
The answer I want to give is it takes what it takes, which I don't mean that to sound snarky at all.
I have a question to build off of that because the clients there, their day is scheduled out. So when they come to the Arts Access program, how many hours do they spend there? Are they there every day, or is it like a
that's a
couple
good
days
question.
a week? 'Cause
Yeah. It's under normal circumstances, COVID aside, some artists will only get a 30-minute block per week to work on their piece. And
Gotcha.
some people have the luxury of having more time, less time, but that's generally what somebody would get in a week to work in a certain discipline. So 30 minutes, and you can imagine how many strokes might, be put to a canvas
Yeah.
in that 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It might not be more than one in some cases.
Right.
Right.
Right. Now that's interesting. I know that, there is. It's funny in the world of art making, especially as a teacher who's trying to convey what value there is in a piece of art to students. And I had to go through this semester with my students actually, in that sometimes a moment of brilliance or a piece that is absolutely brilliant can happen in a flash. It can happen inside of 20 minutes. But there tends to be this cliched attitude that if something takes 100 hours or 1,000 hours, that it inherently must be better. Now, that being the case, I think that works that people labor over and take a lot of time with do have a built-in kind of value just in the labor that went in. There's an artist I'm trying to remember the name of who worked on a single painting for I think it was 10 years and then sold that painting for, somebody found a lot of value in that notion that they worked on the painting for 10 years.
Yes.
Was it a great painting? Kind of. So I'm curious that, now that we kind of see the commitment that goes into these, I'm looking at these in a completely new light, that they're just incredible works in that regard, that it's the time.
Yeah. I have some more facilitation videos. So I believe the next one I have here is one of digital art making, because digital art is also a component
We're gonna do a row
of Matheny's program.
of three of the kisses in a row. Below that, the kisses are the candies that are on the right.
So, which one of these elements do you want to move in place first?
The second piece,
Is this the second piece?
yeah.
Do I need to move that way at all?
No,
Don't need to move this way at all.
maybe a little bit.
Huh.
You know, that just made me think of something. And Keith was the facilitator there. He no longer is at Matheny, but one of the most incredible facilitators we've ever had. But he asked Josh which item on the screen he wanted to move first.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so important that question be asked, because even if ultimately it doesn't make any difference, in the visual aspect of the piece, like, yeah, I want to move that to the top, the one on the left, move to the right, the one on the right, move to the left. Okay. But that it's the artist's choice.
Hmm.
And sometimes it would make a difference, but even in stirring paint, like they'll always ask, should I stir it clockwise or counterclockwise?
Yeah.
And so if someone's stirring two colors together and they're blending them completely, it's not going to make a difference in how the color is blended, but it's going to make a difference in what the artist wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question, but there's an interesting question in the chat that sort of goes with my question. So Joseph Barbacci is asking, do artists sometimes request a change of facilitator?
You take this one, Heather. No,
right.
Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
We're all humans,
Yeah, I was
and
gonna
sometimes
say, certain
we
personalities
gravitate
just-
to different people. So people may work better with others.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it really just comes down to scheduling, and we do our best. But the one thing I can say is, if a facilitator is doing their job, they're all working in the same manner. So if you work on Monday with Joe and you have another session on Wednesday with Steven, you can pick up exactly where you left off with Joe.
Right.
Because Joe is taking copious notes and leaving them on masking tape for the next facilitator.
Gotcha.
So basically one session can seamlessly go into the next one.
Wow.
So maybe personalities may mesh better with others, but
Right.
the process is the same from facilitator to facilitator. So that helps the process a little bit, make it a little smoother.
Right. And given what the facilitator is technically supposed to be doing, that's what it should be, right? We would think that one would be able to move it to the next. And Joseph Barbacci asks a follow-up question of, what is the training like for the facilitators?
It's a great question.
It's a great question. And I'll use the word I always use, which is stringent. The training, we are exacting in how the facilitators are trained, because for the very reason that Heather mentioned earlier, like, we're holding something precious in our hands. Somebody's self-expression is in the hands of the facilitator.
Right.
So we can't scrimp on the training. So there's I'm going to call it book training. We have training manuals that new facilitators study and are quizzed on. There's shadow training where someone would follow a facilitator, mock training where somebody would be the artist and be facilitated, and vice versa. When they would first start out facilitating on their own, they would certainly be, observed, not in a, trying to scare you kind of way, but in a, being helpful should something, not go right, and also being there to support the facilitator, but more importantly, the artist,
Right.
that their work is progressing exactly the way it should. So and the thing is, once the formal training is over, then it's months, for someone to really become, if we had such a thing as a master facilitator, to become a master facilitator.
I would dare to say our training never ends.
True.
And the other thing I was going to say is, when we train our facilitators, we watch and observe every discipline in the program. It's important for everybody to have a clear understanding of what's happening and how the facilitation process can relate to any discipline that we offer. And when I was training as a facilitator, I had this horrible habit of nodding my head. I love to give affirmation. And Keith, who was training me at the time, would say, "Stop nodding your head."
All right.
So I'd be like,
Yeah.
I'd look like a robot because then I was like, "Heather, don't move your head. Don't move your head. Say nothing."
Right.
Wow.
But you know, as a supportive person, as a facilitator, I mean, you're there because you want to offer
and
something.
you're in an empathetic role.
Correct.
So you're trying for a human connection, but you have to drop that so that you become the tool.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Gosh, that's
very
gotta
hard.
be really hard.
It was so hard.
Let's see. So Joseph Barbaccia follows up with, as an artist and a human, I am humbled by your work. Another viewer of ours named Mike Rader asks a really interesting question. He says, I was just thinking about Jerry, Louise Bourgeois' assistant, and his sensitivity to her, the artist's needs. How close do they see themselves as artist assistants?
The facility.
That's such a good question. I love that question. One of the examples that we use sometimes in talking about the program is that of Matisse and his assistants when he was in a wheelchair and working on his paper cutouts, and he would point the stick to the wall for the assistant to place it. And yes, yeah, that's a perfect word for it. You know, someone that has no place in the creativity, but they're there to carry out the direction of the person whose creativity is being expressed.
Gotcha. I was going to bring up Matisse, actually. So, Eileen, I'm really glad you did, because I think he's a really perfect example here. And given that Matisse and his assistants and what sort of evolved out of his needs so long ago and the work that was created, and then what we just said a few minutes ago, where Heather said, I would say that the training never ends. How do you find, you know, as you go forward, and you learn new things through facilitation? I am certain that the facilitators are learning new things about the way they communicate, the way certain aspects to their work contributes new knowledge. Like, are there some examples of how you've sort of made discoveries along the way?
I can speak to the discipline that I work most closely in. When I first started, everything was written in a spiral-bound notepad. We took copious notes. Fast forward 12 years, we now have developed a very sophisticated program on the iPad that has both static images and videos that offer every possible option that a dancer could want.
Okay.
So it's the more you know, the more things progress. And how can we make this more accessible? How can we make this more engaging and sort of streamline the process, and thinking about all of the things that we were missing along the way? You know, like if you are from a dance perspective, if you're connecting to movements, don't just assume that you know how those movements connect. And back in the day, we didn't have those questions in mind. We didn't have those options available in our charting systems. Now we have videos for all of the different connecting steps. And the same applies in visual art too. You know, a straight line isn't necessarily just a pencil line. How thick is that line? You know, there are so many variations on a single choice.
Right.
So it's, you know, we just constantly learn and evolve. Our program changes all the time. I had a beautiful conversation with one of our facilitators today about something that I'll talk to Eileen at another time, but
Tell me now, it's just us.
oh, it's just us.
Come on, bring the people in.
Yes, you know, you're all part of this conversation.
So curious now.
Right? You'll have to wait. But just, we never stop evolving. It's just too important. It's too important.
You know, my go ahead.
Well, no, this is probably going to distract you from your
No, go
question.
ahead.
But we had been talking about other artists, and you know, there's certain principles that the facilitators incorporate in order to remain neutral and, you know, assist other artists and drop their pretenses and whatnot. But do you ever expose the clients to other artists' work? Like, hey, that your work looks something like this, or do you not do that for the sake of neutrality or influencing what they're creating?
Yeah, we wouldn't say to someone, your work looks like this person's, because that does sort of cross that neutral line. It's a slippery slope. But on the other hand, well, back in the day when people went out in public, it's coming back, but we would do trips to galleries and trips to museums. And I think our clients learn from each other also, just in terms of seeing how someone is using a certain color. It's interesting when you see people's art change. There's one gentleman who never used pink in his work, and is using it masterfully. And we're all surmising, although we don't know for sure, it's because his current girlfriend loves pink.
Oh,
And
that's
it's so
beautiful.
interesting.
I
yeah,
love that.
that's great.
She's somewhat of a muse for him.
Yeah.
That's
But to that
fantastic.
end, we try, well, not we try. If there's any question about, like, is this going to influence someone? Could it? Then we back off, and better safe than sorry in that instance.
Gotcha. And I just want to point out to the chat real quick, Joseph Barbaccia and Mom, I'm going to get to your questions. I see them there, but I am going to skip over them for 1 second. So John Park says, another unintentional but nice thing that this interview is pointing out in a new way for me is how much imagination is the most important aspect of art. In my view, at least, it's great to be able to have amazing technique if one is so gifted, but it isn't the mandatory trait. Imagination is. And that's what you're doing, is you're allowing that communicate. You're the conduit for that to become realized.
That's a great statement.
Yeah. Thanks for that, John. That's really quite good.
Yeah, and up on the screen now is a partial studio shot. The actual studio itself is rather large. There's several different partitioned areas. I know you have a splatter room in one area. But there's quite a few tools that are utilized in order to facilitate the art making. So there are color charts. I'm just trying to get to the slides with some of the tools, but there's color charts, there's different brushes. Some of the clients utilize their wheelchair wheels. I think I've seen that in an interview as well. There's some creative tools of the trade there. So each individual tool and each shape and each color, everything is a choice that the client makes in order to put on the screen. Yeah, so that's pretty neat.
Just a interesting story around the choice of tools. Back in the day when I was facilitating, I was working with a young man, and I'd gone through, I swear to God, every single tool we had, like every brush, every unconventional tool, every roller. And he was like, no, 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 no. And this was important because I was trained right. I didn't say, well, that's all we have, so I don't know what to tell you. I said, okay, I'm going to work with you to figure this out. And essentially he eye gazed at the wall, because that's how he did his yes or no, and communicated. Like yes was eyes up, no was eyes to the side, but he was just directing his focus. And on the wall there was pinned a CD. And I was like, is it this? No. Is it this? No. Is it the CD? And he's like, yes. His eyes like went back in his head. So basically he wanted me to paint the CD and then use it.
It's like a print
as
making.
a printmaking device.
Okay, that's really
on
cool.
Painting.
Cool.
Wow.
Which, and that goes back to the imagination and creativity question. I was like, I love that. I love,
Completely.
We had a young lady who sculpted this. It was so tall, like 7 or 8 feet tall. It was aluminum foil sculpted between her inner thighs.
Wow.
And the facilitator clumped it up, sort of helped her manipulate it. And when she had gotten it to the shape, she made all of these different configurations and then found a way to stack them. And it was this tall and lean, gorgeous sculpture completely out of aluminum foil. And then she applied paint and different treatments. But
Wow.
there is no limit.
Right.
Huh. So the facilitator was able to sort of ascertain that she wanted to use her legs to form the material.
Yeah.
Huh. God, that's fantastic.
That is fantastic.
It's so exciting. So my mom and Joseph Barbaccia ask similar questions. My mother asks, is there ever an art show where the public can see these works? So that's the first one.
Yes.
I had a feeling you were going to say that.
Yes, absolutely. That's part of another part of our mission is that, we hold their art in our hands and also put it out into the world. So currently we have a show at the Atrium in Morristown. And I want to say there's like 30 or 40 pieces displayed there.
Wow.
And then another show at the Rutgers, New Jersey Medical School in Newark. And so we're always, especially now that COVID is over, we're re-upping our efforts to get the work out into the public. We also, exhibit it digitally. So we have virtual galleries. But the answer is yes. In 2019, one of the most, prestigious exhibits was 5 of our artists exhibited at Sotheby's in New York.
Yes.
And
There's
it was amazing.
Yeah, I did see a video for that on YouTube that looked pretty fantastic.
It was wonderful.
Yeah.
In the YouTube description of this video after tonight, I will link to some of those so that if anybody wants to go and look at them, they can.
Yeah. We're kind of starting to wind down, but not quite yet. But I did want to share some of the examples of the artwork with the artists. So some of the work that we're seeing right now, this is an artist who's pretty prolific, Ellen Kane, and she created the last 3 pieces. Now, a lot of these pieces are up for purchase.
And that's what I was going to point out.
Yeah. And I think while you're
Thank
talking
you.
about that, I'm just going to scroll through some of the pieces and introduce you visually to some of the artists that create them.
I think that's a great idea. So you go visually, and I'll talk a little bit about
Sounds
that. So
good.
you can go onto the Arts Access program website, and there is an actual art shop. Now, the beauty of this is you can usually buy the original work, but the works are also offered as digital prints. So you can buy at a variety of tiers, depending on what your comfort zone is or what your budget is. But either Eileen or Heather, can you talk to us about how purchasing that work benefits either you or the artist?
I can, it's fairly straightforward. Half of the purchase price goes directly to the artist, and the other half goes back to support the program, and that's to cover framing costs, materials, and such. So anytime work sells, it is really advancing the vocational opportunities for the individuals who create it. And as you might be able to imagine, work and career opportunities are very limited for them. So they make something that they've created something themselves and also selling it. And it's an awesome feeling.
It's beautiful. And for those of you who are thinking about picking up a print, keep in mind that these are produced archivally. So they're digital archival pigment jet prints, which means that in light, they typically will not fade. Whereas something out of your Epson color printer under the desk is not archival at all. So, what you're buying is an archival art piece when you buy that print, and it's totally a great collectible.
I will also say that it's not just the prints and the artwork that's for sale. They have lots of other
Merchandise.
Yes, they have scarves, and they have ties, they have notebooks.
Yeah.
So all kinds of things. I have some pictures of that too, but the artwork is so gorgeous here that I don't want to skip right to that yet. So I'm just going to keep scrolling for a few more moments.
You know, as a sculptor, I have a couple of questions for you. Just chat so you know, I put the link to the actual shop in the chat. So if you click on that, you'll head over there. But as a sculptor, I have a question because when I see some of the sculpture appear, like the metal piece that we saw a few minutes ago, how do your facilities, not facilitators, but your facilities, sort of lend themselves to those more complex processes?
Do you mean the fabrication of the larger pieces?
Yeah,
or
like, yeah, exactly that. Like, how do you go about making sculpture for artists that have a really a vision that might be outside of what it is that you're capable
like
of doing?
is there a certain scale or
Well,
some
there's
kind
scale. I see metalwork.
Yeah.
I see, you know, materials that might be challenging to manipulate in your. I'm curious about that scope for you.
well, the way the digital sculpture medium is applied, or the process of it, well, it's digital. So it's in a 3D digital program. So then when a piece is fabricated, whether it be in rosin or metal, or, you know, whatever material, if it's rosin, it can be through a 3D printer. For that particular piece, we had that sent out to a metal worker who fabricated it
Oh,
for
that's
us.
fantastic.
Wow.
There's two other sculptures currently in the gallery that actually one of our facilitators, who's also a fabricator, had created them, you know, from the 3D digital work, or it may have been a maquette at the time, because we haven't been doing the 3D digital the entire time, of course. So I hope, does that answer the question?
Oh yeah, totally. I didn't realize that you were, you know, working them from the beginning as digital mock-ups in a sense.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
So your facilitators are quite skilled in terms of their technological prowess.
They're amazing.
Huh.
Yeah.
And so humble. You would never know the experience that all of these guys have.
Wow.
Yeah, you can never get them to admit how good they are.
Oh.
Heather included, because
Oh,
she
no,
still
stop.
facilitates, and she's an
Ah.
incredible,
Ah.
incredible facilitator.
So is there an on-campus gallery that the public can see, or is that?
There is an on-campus gallery. We are fortunate to have a beautiful art center, and Terri knows, she's
It's
seen it.
gorgeous. Yes.
Yeah.
And the theater is state of the art and absolutely stunning. Yeah.
Yeah. And the gallery too, it is not open to the public because, you know, we're a hospital in residence. So people can't just come in off the street. But if they were to reach out to me, whether through email or call, we could arrange, you know, an appointment to see the gallery.
Oh, that's fantastic. Joseph Barbaccio was asking, how can one contribute to the work that you do? Are there other ways in which, beyond buying the work of the artists, are there other ways in which the public can support Matheny?
Well, we certainly always take donations.
Yeah.
Just to put it directly out there.
Don't be afraid to do that.
Yeah, you know, and there's a donate button on our website. We love it when people, you know, join our mail list, which can be done on the website. You know, attend, you know, like us, excuse me, like us on Facebook and on Instagram, you know, attend any of the shows that are coming up. Excuse me. That's a huge support for the program, and especially coming to a show in person, huge support for the artist. It just means, as every artist knows, it means the world when people care enough to come and look at your work.
That's great. Well, I definitely am going to be coming to the next opening or the next show.
I'm excited. I'm excited about the theater program too, because that looks like a stunning.
Just out of curiosity, we didn't touch much on areas outside of the visual arts, but sort of as a last sort of minute thing, when there are performances, where are those typically held? in the theater or regarding to dance and that sort of.
We have a wonderful, fully accessible theater. So at least once a year when we have our Full Circle show, which is our annual presentation, we use our theater. Every seat is accessible, the stage is accessible. But we also try to get our performers and choreographers and writers out into the community. And we just did a poetry reading at a library in Parsippany. We've participated in dance festivals. And, so as much as we do in-house, we really like to branch out too so that other people can enjoy the work.
Great. Heather and Eileen, this has been fantastic.
Yeah, it really has.
For everybody that's watching tonight, I highly encourage you to get over to Matheny's website, follow them, and do what you can to support these wonderful artists. And you can pick up. I mean, when you go to that shop that I put in the chat, the work is fantastic.
It really is.
And now you have a taste of what goes into actually making it. So I really encourage you to do what you can. Also follow them. Attend an event. Go see an opening.
Mm-hmm. Go to their website. Find out what's going on.
Everything's listed all the time.
Heather and Eileen, thank you so much for this. This was really a delight. There's a lot of comments coming in at the last minute. Shirley Polinsky saying, amazing program. I really love this show. Pumpkin Audrey, love the Pink Muse story. Great show. Thank you. Joseph Barbaccia is saying, oh my God, I'm contributing. Ben Hagenbush is saying, great show tonight. So everybody was really,
Yeah, and I just want to recognize the facilitators in the program too. We have Andrew Edge, who's one of the visual arts. He's the visual arts coordinator. We have Joseph as well, who's a visual arts facilitator. And then we also have Stephen Holushka, who's also a visual arts facilitator. And these are the facilitators that help to make the work happen as well for the clients.
They're just amazing people. It's just such a beautiful thing.
Such a beautiful thing. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, this was a real delight. Thank you.
Thank you both, and thank you to all your viewers. It really is so gratifying. Heather and I both love talking about the program, and it means so much when people want to hear about it. So I'm very gratified.
Great. Well, listen, we hope to talk to you again soon, and we will certainly meet you. So I will. I mean, Terry's already met you, but I will certainly meet you soon. But thanks again to both of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon. Okay. Wow, that was fantastic.
I told you it would be.
I know. Well, no, I didn't doubt that it would be. I was just
had such an amazing time learning at Matheny, and Denise King, who's the chief nursing officer there, she taught me so much, and all the people there and all the patients and the nurses and the staff and the doctors and the behavioral therapists, and everybody works together to do so much for the clients there, and it's such a wonderful place. So
look at Jim Osmond is here. He says, great show. Thanks so much. Hi, Jim. Nice to see you. Boo Jazz is here. Wonderful show, everyone. Mike Rader says, wonderful show. Best to these two amazing people. My mom says amazing. Thanks, Mom. This was
good.
Yeah, I got to tell you, when we first started working towards this show and I got onto the site where the work was for sale, my jaw dropped. I was like, this is incredible.
It's incredible. And we didn't even cover all
Not
of
even
what they
close.
do.
There's so much.
There's more artists that I didn't even show because it was just so amazing.
Sorry.
So you have to go check out the site.
Sorry to those artists that we didn't get
and
to.
in person, the works are beautiful too. I got to see them in person. That's what blew me away about the whole thing. So yeah.
So anyway, to all of you, there's Glenn Lavert too. Good to see you, Glenn. Thanks for coming.
Yep.
Listen, next week. Quick talk about next week's show. Next week we have Tony Starbuck, who is currently exhibiting at the Brownstone Art in Brooklyn. Great show. Get over there and see that. We're going to be talking to him live. Got some good stuff coming up.
We do have some good stuff.
Sandra Chamberlain the week after that.
Yeah, Matthew Collings the week after that.
So good stuff on the horizon.
Yeah.
So
it's going to be good.
All right, everyone, listen, from us to you, thank you so much. Episode 91 in the bag.
Yes.
Thanks for sticking to that with us. We'll see you. Hey, have a good Memorial Day weekend.
Oh, yeah.
To all of you.
Yeah.
All right. Cheers, everybody. Have a great night.
Cheers.
Thanks again.